Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to episode 26 of Time for Fellowship with Matt and Andrew. We're plugging right along. Unfortunately, I'm sans Andrew for 2 weeks in a row because somebody decides that he gets to have a life or something that's more important than the podcast. Let's run this intro and bring our guests on.
Loosen up your ties and roll up your sleeves. It's time for Fellowship with Matt and Andrew. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are not necessarily the views and opinions of the Grand Lodge of Wisconsin or any other Grand Lodge or any appended body.
All right, awesome. Well, today we had a little bit of a school of instruction this morning prior to us sitting down and being able to record, and I had no plan coming into today because that's honestly just kind of how I roll when it comes to this podcast sometimes, because I like candid conversations. So I grabbed 2 other late guys to join me on the podcast today to talk about masonry and being relatively new to the officer line. And just to confuse our listeners even more, today we have Ethan and Ethan. So we have Ethan Rosenlund with us, who's currently the senior steward at Lake Lodge, and we have Klema, who is currently our organist or musician or whatever title we want to give him, because we never know which instrument he's going to play. So how are you guys doing today?
Doing great after that schools of instruction.
Right on.
Yep, doing pretty good. The school of instruction was really nice today.
It was pretty well done, especially for Jason being a new district lecturer. He did do a really good job covering some stuff that we usually don't do often in Lodge, like taking up the pass or receiving Grand Line officers, because none of those guys ever seem to want to be received, which says a lot about their humility, which is pretty awesome, actually. But we're not here to talk about the School of Instruction. Let's talk about some other stuff. So I'm going to start with Ethan². What got you into Masonry? Why are you here? What's kept you around?
Well, the first thing that got me intrigued was I love conspiracies. So just anything with that. And I just want to know the answer to the conspiracy, whether the conspiracy was true or not. So that just seemed like a lot of fun. And then when I came in, it was completely different than what I was actually expecting. And it has been terrific. I've loved everything about it. The brotherhood of everything going on, all the knowledge actually all the brothers have, just all the different stuff that everyone does. I thought it was really cool. So like any brother I go talk to, I can learn something else off of, because it's just not what I do, or what they do is not what I do. And it's just really fun to learn all this new stuff.
Right. Excellent. That's a really good answer. Same question for you, Rosenlund.
So I got into masonry just based off of the curiosity of it at first. You always kind of hear about it kind of in the background, and you always just kind of wonder, and then the thought goes away after a while. But I was lucky enough to meet a Mason, and he instructed me to contact a lodge. I followed through with it, and I've been coming around ever since. The aspect I really enjoy of it is, like Brother Ethan Klema said over here, is the brotherhood, just getting to know the guys and hanging around them, doing charity work with them. And one of my favorite parts is, I think, one of the reasons that I stick around the most is really the positive role modelship. I think there's a great deal to be learned from everybody here. We've got brothers from all walks of life that attend our lodge, and it's just great to learn from everybody that attends.
Awesome. And that's actually, you kind of sparked something in my head there that I feel like should be brought up with the two of you being guests, and maybe could be a topic of conversation at some point throughout this. Is you're in your late 20s, if I remember correctly. Yep. And you're like 31. Yep. So you guys are both relatively young men, and definitely newer to the fraternity, and young for the fraternity. Let's be honest. The fraternity's average age is much higher than that. So, and I joined when I was 35, so I've been around for a minute, but I experienced the same thing you just brought up. Is it was nice to have the company of all the other guys around, and the mentorship that some of the, I don't want to call them older members, but the more experienced members. I mean, let's be honest, you end up sitting in lodge with guys that are old enough to be your dad or maybe even your grandfather sometime, and they have a lot of things they can teach you about life. It's another place you can come have a conversation with men who can give you guidance on stuff from their own life experience. Mm-hmm. You know, when maybe you wouldn't be as comfortable talking about it with like your own family or something like that. So
right. It's I I mean, if you're going through something, somebody else has probably gone through it before you. And it's great to get, I guess, their advice on stuff that you might be going through.
Right. And I think that's one of the strengths of Freemasonry, right? Is you put all these guys in the same room together and you're bound to have some of that ability for that stuff to rub off and get that mentorship going. And when we say mentorship, it doesn't even just have to be Freemasonry that we're talking about specifically mentorship wise. It can be mentorship in the fraternity on how to do work and stuff like that, or how to cook a meal but it can be mentorship for your personal life too. If you develop a relationship with somebody who's got 20 more years on the planet than you do, and use them as a source of guidance to help you through the situations that you might have otherwise had to figure out on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, going off of what you just said, that's kind of how with what happened with me in my personal life with my family about almost 2 years ago. If it was just me, I would have been lost. But I had so many brothers to come to and talk to, and they gave me so much good advice that helped me, like take care of my son properly and do all that stuff, because I wouldn't be sure how exactly to navigate everything, or I wasn't sure how to navigate everything.
Right. And that's been huge for me too with Zoe now, like a 2.5-year-old at home. I have no clue how to handle a 2.5-year-old. So, or how to handle that change to life. And, you can get some advice from your parents and stuff like that, but it's always nice to have a larger group of people to pull information from. So you're a senior steward, you're a musician, you guys have been around the line for a while. Here's a fun question, and whichever one of you wants to take it first can take it. If you hadn't become involved in the officer line as quickly as you did, because you guys are both, going on 2 years since you've been raised?
Yep.
And you pretty much went through at the same time, I think, for all your degrees, with the exception of like Master Mason, were like a month apart. But if you guys weren't involved in the line and maybe had to wait a year or two to get into officer chairs or something like that, do you think you would have kept coming to Lodge still during that time while you were waiting to actually kind of get pulled into being more involved?
I got a feeling we're gonna have the same answer for this.
I definitely would have keep coming. Like the brotherhood aspect, like we were talking, I loved it. Like I didn't really have many friends either before coming into this. So coming in, just hanging out with the guys is just so much fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would have waited a while, to actually become an officer. It's just like he said, it's great just coming around, coming to meetings, just being part of events. Being a Mason, I don't think it centers around being an officer,
Right.
It's everything that you learn about being a Mason.
No, those are great answers. I'm really happy to hear it. But you just get some of these guys sometimes that you can tell, like, if you wouldn't have brought them into that like closer fold, that they may not have been as active or intrigued or stuff like that. So I really like hearing that answer. And honestly, I know you both well enough that answer doesn't surprise me at all. I kind of knew what I was going to get before I asked it.
I think if you ask a lot of members of our lodge that question, I get a feeling that you would get the same answer. I think our lodge does a great job of inspiring enthusiasm.
Excellent. That's good to hear. I agree with you. I don't disagree with you. I've felt very inspired by Lake over the years. Obviously, otherwise I probably wouldn't still be here. Mm-hmm. That's one of those things. You gotta keep guys active and engaged and wanting to come back. Otherwise, they're just not going to. Mm-hmm. So I'm really glad to hear that out of you guys. What has it been like? I'm going to throw you under the bus for this one, Rosenlund.
That's fine.
What has it been like working for Andrew, with him being junior warden and you being senior steward?
So far, number one, it's been great. The communication's been top notch. It's hard to say I've gotten the full experience as of yet. We had a little bit of a sneak peek in December because we took over the kitchen in December, right. But so far he's been busy with his kid and other life events. But so far, yes, I will say it's been positive, and I'm looking forward to when we actually get to work in the kitchen together.
Man, you're acting like he's going to hear this episode or something.
I don't want to throw him all the way under the bus.
No, Andrew, your stewards are doing an excellent job when you listen to this. You should be here having this conversation with me. He'll probably cut that. He should, but I got to give him grief.
I think also we've just learned from watching others in the kitchen previous to us. So I think that really helps make a difference in knowing what we're supposed to do in the kitchen.
No, I would agree. You guys have a pretty much well-oiled machine in there, even in the absence of Andrew sometimes.
Even when other brothers come, help us out in the kitchen, Klema comes in and helps us out pretty frequently, which we're very grateful for, because sometimes, we get a lot of people and it can become pretty hectic for just to serve a meal or to clean up. So
Right. I agree. No, and it seems like there are a lot of guys pitching in. And the nice thing is it's been consistent in that kitchen over the last, I've only been around for going on 6 years, so I can't speak for prior to 6 years, but it's been pretty consistent in that kitchen for the last 6 years. So guys that were stewards and now are in higher chairs know pretty much how everything works in that, because we've kept everything pretty much operating in the same manner. So it's made it easy for guys to jump back in and help out when help is needed, because everything just kind of runs the same way.
You just know how it goes and see what needs to be done.
Exactly. Oh, I'm going to throw it over to you for a second. It's been nice to have music in Lodge, and I know you've sat in Lodge a few times where there hasn't been music in the parts where we kind of try to fill something in, or you try to fill something in because you're over there on the organ or the guitar or whatever. What do you think the addition of music brings to Lodge that makes it, I would say at this point now, I would almost call it a vital part of our meetings?
I guess I really am not sure. I mean, I've been to a couple other meetings in other lodges where there's no musician, and it definitely feels really weird. It feels like we're missing something. Like there's just something going on there. Like we shouldn't all be sitting in silence for this next 10, no, it's never 10 minutes, it's like 30 seconds.
Right.
It feels like 10 minutes when it's silent.
Yeah.
Right.
And then when I'm playing music, that actually just at our last stated, I'm playing, all of a sudden I look, I'm like, oh, everyone's already seated. I got to stop playing because I wasn't paying attention. I was just playing and going along. And
Right. It definitely fills some of that space when, you got somebody walking around the room for a while, but it's nice to have it in the Lodge room. Really, really happy we brought that back, and happy we could bring that back with you. And we should, have you had a chance to look at any of those? I know when we were cleaning up the Lafayette stuff, we came across some old handwritten music that was from Lafayette, like way back in how old was it again? Was there dates on there?
there is dates, but I cannot recall them off the top of my head, but they go back quite a ways, and it's really cool. I've looked through one of the books, and it kind of blew my mind seeing something handwritten in there as music, because I've never seen that after playing music for 20 years. Seeing a handwritten sheet music was so cool to actually see. It might not, people are like, it's just handwritten. Yeah, but I'm like, we don't do this anymore. And just seeing this old school style,
Right.
it's just really cool to see.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I hope we find some gems in there. That's, and that's part of the reason that lodges get a lot of times, well, why do you guys keep stuff from 100 years ago? That's why we keep stuff from 100 years ago, right?
So the notes that are handwritten, is that just a song that somebody made, like an original song by somebody?
Yeah, I'm assuming that's a song they wrote for like our lodge or their lodge.
That'd be great to bring back.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That would be really cool to bring back all the old music.
Right, exactly. So I know it's in good hands. Figure it out and see what's there. Be cool to bust some of that out by the end of the year, actually. Let's see. Where else do we want to go? We're going to throw it back over to you, Rosenlund. I'll give Klema a minute to think about his answer to this. What do you think Freemasonry's biggest impact has been on your personal life?
I might need a second to think about that.
Yeah,
Honestly, I could go with that right away, actually.
We'll let Klema go first then.
So the biggest impact, it's genuinely made me a better person. Like I don't want so I was a drug addict for 8 years. I got sober. I've been sober now 8 years, and I've been always trying to be better since then. But there's just something about coming around all these guys that I'm like, I can see them all doing all this good stuff. It just makes me want to do more good stuff. It just makes me want to help other people. Then it's just like going on, like most of the time, most people, you're driving on the road, the dude holding a sign asking for stuff. Most people don't give them stuff. Granted, I don't like to give out money and stuff, but I always got snacks in my lunchbox. I always got that. I always make it a thing. Like if I see a homeless guy, I'm like, no, I'm going to give you food. I'm never going to give him money. That's just who I am. But food, because being on, when you are a drug addict, you're probably going to end up homeless at some time. And that is the most crucial thing when you're homeless is food. You don't need money. They're going to go spend it on drugs.
Right.
So when you getting food and just helping out the community, doing all that stuff has been great. But it's also, for me personally, it's been made me more want to be just make me into a better dad for my father. It's made me want to like actually work harder at my job so I can make a better life for my son. Like there's just certain spots I'm not sure if I would go as hard in as I am now, but I also don't want to let down all the brethren around me, because before it was just me. I could let myself down and not really care.
Right.
But I don't want to let anybody down around here. And that's a big thing for me. It's like, I just don't like to let people down.
That was a pretty intense answer. Yeah. I like it.
So for me, I guess, bearing in mind that you are a Mason, kind of, you try to hold yourself to a higher standard, whether that's through wearing the square and compass, right? If you choose to do something that somebody could kind of be upset with you about, and let's say something as simple as cutting somebody off in traffic, right? And you have a Masonic bumper sticker on your bump. Well, hang on, cut this. All right.
On your car.
Yeah, something like that.
I got you. I'll pick it up for you. So yeah, like if you're wearing a hat or a ring or have something on your vehicle that shows that you're a Freemason, it's probably gonna, if you care about the fraternity and you care about the reputation of the fraternity and your brothers in the fraternity, it's gonna make you behave different, because you don't want people to associate the square and compasses with poor behavior.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's really helped me just choose to make better decisions based on, just that people even know I'm a Freemason. If they see me do something that they would consider bad judgment, I mean, they would say, well, I thought Freemasonry was supposed to help you become a better man, So I try to the best of my ability, always try to make better decisions than I did previously. And I think that's really helped me out in my family life, in my circle of friends, and just trying to be a positive role model.
Awesome. I like both those answers a lot. Those are both really good. What does, and whoever wants to take this first, and this doesn't have to be a super complex answer necessarily, but if you have one, great. What does Freemasonry need to do to speak to more men in your guys' age group and the men coming up behind you guys?
It's hard to tell, in my opinion, because right now we are seeing a large influx of younger men. So it almost seems like the word is out that the younger men that want the camaraderie and the mentorship, it's almost like right here, it's here waiting for them, and they just need to reach out.
Right.
That's sometimes what it seems like, but I'm sorry, what was the question again?
What does Freemasonry need to do to start like reaching out to more men your guys' ages or younger?
I mean, just to get the word out, it's hard to tell, because right now we're blasting social media right now, right?
Right.
We're holding a lot of public events, and it just seems hard to tell. I guess I'm not really sure. How's that?
And one of those interesting things I find about social media, before we get to you real quick, we're going to follow this rabbit trail for a second, is like, I know you aren't particularly active on social media.
I'm not.
And neither are you. So there again, I feel like we've put a lot of emphasis on social media and certain platforms over other platforms, where like Facebook is more for like guys my age, a little bit younger than me, but it really kind of died off with like the younger people, and Instagram died off a lot with, TikTok seems to be the big one right now if you want to reach people. But at the same time, you have a lot of people in the generations after me, which I'm on that line between Gen X and millennial. So an elder millennial or a young Gen Xer or Zennial or whatever the heck they're calling us these days, but we live in both worlds. So when you're talking like the younger millennials and the generations after them, you do see a lot more of people that just aren't on social media or choose not to be on social media at all anymore, which is also another interesting facet, because it's like the Facebook generation or the social media generation, and like half of them aren't on social media. So maybe we need to start working on other avenues besides focusing so heavily on social media.
See, that's kind of where I was going to go with it. I think to get more younger guys in and stuff like that too. I think it's kind of how we're doing. I know we're doing a table at State Fair.
Yep.
And just doing stuff like events. Like I know we've got events here in Bayview where we just do there's, oh geez, I'm just blanking on the events here. But anyways, just other smaller events, just like in your communities, like we're doing something like even if it's just like a craft fair or something, set up a booth there, get two guys to just sit there, Granted, we're not selling anything, but people walk by and they have questions.
Right.
And that's because to me, that's sort of like going to swap meets, all that stuff. I love doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But you don't really see any of that stuff out in that way. And I feel like that's the original social media, is all that just word of mouth talking.
Right.
And with all of us younger guys kind of stepping away from that, I think we need to go back to the more traditional way of trying to advertise to people.
So farmers markets, all that kind of stuff, especially with people being big and not buying mass produced food. I feel like farmers markets might be a great place to try to get an informational booth and sit out there for a day. Buy some stuff from some farmers too.
I think Ethan had a great idea there. I think so. Just being out in the public and just showing that we are there and they can actually come and talk to us. I think that creates a lot more, not awareness, but it just shows that they can come talk to us instead of just seeing us on social media. If we're just making a quick video for TikTok, they'll see it and just be like, oh, that's kind of neat. Maybe I'll go talk to them at some point.
Right.
Whereas if, we have a booth somewhere, perhaps at a farmer's market or a fair, they can just come right up and talk to us and actually get the process started.
Right, right. And understand that it's real people that they're interacting with and probably somebody that's not much different than themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas, they could send an email or a social media thing, but that doesn't establish the physical or...
The physical connection.
Physical connection right away.
I was seeing that, like you're saying, like people, because I'm not gonna lie, my thought process is this can all be like businessmen and all this stuff, and I'm like, I've met only a couple businessmen. They've all been construction workers. Like you've got your truck that you drive around, like you're a machinist. Like it's way different of the atmosphere of people in here than what I was expecting to. So I think that's what a lot of people are expecting to. It's like all these high up businessmen, and it's not.
It's not at all. It's a very eclectic group. I mean, even if you just look at our own lodge, you got retired police officers, you got a couple of lawyers, you got Andrew who does whatever he does, like buying stuff in bulk for the company he works for and stuff. I have the Little Debbie stuff, machinist, carpenter, couple of fiber optic guys, couple of heavy equipment operators. Yeah, it runs the gamut. There is, and one of the fun things is you get to learn a lot about a lot of different stuff, talking to all those different guys, doing all those different jobs.
Oh, I think also in addition to what we were saying, tying back to, I think your question was, how has Freemasonry impacted your personal life?
Yeah.
I think just being that role model that I mentioned, just being a good role model to, I guess, yourself or the people around you, I think the word of Freemasonry will also spread through positive acts, just showing that you are a pretty good person. And if they know that you're a Freemason, well, they might want to join and see what it's all about. They're more inclined to talk to you about it. And you can just kind of put the idea in their head. Hey, if you're looking into becoming a better version of yourself, let us know.
Right. Right. And that's actually kind of interesting to think about it that way, because that kind of used to be how it worked. And then we really started putting ourselves out there, which I think is a great thing. I mean, having advertisements out there and stuff and reminding people we're there is great. Maybe that will raise awareness for them to look for the guys doing the good deeds and, standing uprightly in society, and ask the question and be curious about it. So I think you touched on something very important there. And it's something that's come up on the podcast multiple times, I think, is that, if you're going to do this, if you're going to be a Freemason, then you need to make sure that your conduct outside of the lodge matches those values. Otherwise, you are sullying the fraternity.
Right.
So,
yeah, perhaps it's hard to like tiptoe the line sometimes when, you've got, like I said, a bumper sticker that's the square and compass, and maybe you do something bad sometimes here and there, or,
right.
It can be hard to uphold the act once in a while. I'm not saying something absolutely heinous, but
right. No, it's something as simple as, flipping somebody off or cutting you off.
I was just saying a little bit of road rage.
Right.
Yeah. Not that I get road rage often.
Right. Yeah. When you drive around a 15-foot box truck all day, which does not have the square and compasses on it, mind you. Yeah. You get a little quicker to anger sometimes when you're driving, but that goes back to the point that we are all rough ashlers and none of us are ever going to be perfect. So there's always something we can do better, and we might fall off the path every now and then, but 90% of the time we should be upholding those values and representing the fraternity well. I think that's fair. Well, what do we want to talk about for a couple more minutes here? What do we want? Do we want to just talk smack about Andrew for a couple minutes?
No, we shouldn't do that. Not while he's gone, anyways.
I was gonna say it's probably a little more quiet with him gone.
It probably is. You know, I actually appreciate when he's on the podcast because I feel like I don't have to dominate the conversation as much. I just let him take care of that.
Yeah, especially with two podcast newbies.
So you're senior steward. We'll find out what you're doing next year eventually, right? How do you see, like, I know this is a crazy question.
Do I have a second to think? So I don't.
Yeah, you might, but it's not really a crazy question. It's just, it's a different kind of question. You're senior steward. You have a few chairs to go through to get there yet, but just curious, have you started thinking about what it's going to be like to be in the East at all yet? Assuming you get elected and make it all the way through the line.
You said if I thought about what it's going to be like to be,
Yeah. Have
in
you
the East?
started thinking about any,
or have I?
after being around for like a little bit now, like, have you started thinking about it? Like, ooh, I like what he did, or I didn't like what he did. And, you know, is there even just the very rough edges and outlines of a plan starting to come together?
Yeah, very rough. I guess right now I'm kind of passively, but also actively watching what all the masters have done before me. And just like you said, just seeing what works in a year, what doesn't work, what I like that they do in their year, how they govern their lodge, how they treat everybody under them, and just kind of taking it all in and forming my perfect year.
There you go. No, and that's the answer I was hoping to hear, because I think it's something very important to get out in the open, because I think guys don't start thinking about it soon enough a lot of times. Like, the 5 years you have to go, you're going to go pretty quickly,
right?
You know, like, and next thing you know, you're going to be there and you're going to be like, man, I wish I would have started thinking about that sooner. And it's not a bad idea that as soon as you get into a position in the progressive line, now, you know, you have to keep reminding yourself, it's always assuming I get advanced, assuming I get elected, assuming, right? You know, you're making a lot of assumptions, but there's nothing wrong with thinking about the what if scenario, right? Like, if I do make it all the way through the line, what's it going to look like? And starting to ready those plans and have it, even just in its most archaic form, starting to build and grow in your mind, you know?
Yeah, I agree. The thought of it coming soon is definitely there. Matter of fact, sometimes I almost want to say I didn't join the officers line right away, just so I still had a few more years just to kind of see how everybody does things, how everything worked. I'm not saying I wish I didn't join. It's just I almost wish there was a few people that got raised before me, just so I could kind of follow, and I had more clear footsteps to follow.
Gotcha.
In a way.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I mean, I can sympathize with that. So I went into
you were thrown in quick.
I went into the line as junior steward a few months after I was raised.
Okay.
But then our junior deacon fell out of line, and our senior steward didn't want to move up the line at all. So I was junior steward for a year and then jumped to senior deacon. So I can simply, the only thing that kind of saved me was the one thing to come out, a good thing to come out of the pandemic was the fact that we all stayed in our chairs. So I got 2 years to sit senior deacon.
Had that bit of extra time just to prepare and, you know, learn your parts, study up.
Yep. Slowed it down a second, you know, and then we got a lot of work in while I was senior deacon while we came back, which was also very helpful because it, you know, re-engaged me right away and kept me moving and forced me to make sure my ritual was on point. But yeah, I can sympathize with what you're saying, but I don't think you have anything to worry about. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thanks.
Now, sitting on the outside, potentially maybe thinking about coming into the line at some point, is that something that's crossed your mind at all, or are you just enjoying taking it all in?
I mean, I guess a little bit of both, because I've definitely, like he's saying, having the more time, being a musician for the 2 years. Well, this second year, it is nice being able to kind of watch and be like, 'cause I don't have to really think about that, but I definitely have. It's crossed my mind and pondered it occasionally. But no, I kind of just like watching and taking all the stuff in. Like, I like that you're doing Matt doing the blood drive this year. Like, I think that's a great thing. But coming in when I did right after COVID, it was really weird because everyone was just kind of coming back and it was kind of like relivening up a little bit. But I think for events wise, but I think the only thing I would change a little bit that I haven't seen is we would do more like joint lodge events. Because really bring the brotherhood together. Like we had the axe throwing thing, and compared to last year, this year, there were so many more brethren that weren't from our lodge. And I thought it was so cool because I think I had one brother from our lodge on my lane. And so I was just talking to different brothers the whole night that I normally wouldn't because we don't go to their lodge that often. But it seems like everyone wants to go to all these events all the time. And that's where you get to meet all the other brothers.
Well, and I'm going to say I agree with you on that point because that's kind of been an undercurrent to everything I've been doing lately or attempting to do with the traveling lodge and having done my traveling apron last year and having gotten all the worshipful masters in District 12 together to have breakfast together so that we could start moving down that road, because I wholeheartedly agree that we're going to be more successful if we start doing more stuff together on a district level, not maybe with like district officers directly involved, but like lodges self-organizing to do things together to put on bigger and better events, right? Because if you get many hands make light work, and if it's an event that's going to cost some money, many different pockets help, right? So like, I'm definitely with you on that. I think that's something we need to continue to work towards, is that lodges self-organize and work together and get stuff done and maybe have some friendly competitions and, get out there and kind of get to know each other. There's not all that many like Masons in District 12, if you really think about it. And like, we can get together and have a lot of fun together always. So, let's just start building that.
So what you're saying is we need like a spirit week. So it's like homecoming. So we have like a week where you got the game night. So this lodge against this lodge. So I think someone brought up last year, we're trying to get like a kickball tournament or something started. I think something along that lines, just getting each lodge to get 10 guys to compete against something.
Right. And myself and a couple guys from up north have been talking about an idea we're kind of keeping under hat right now. So, but there might be something coming in the future that could be kind of interesting.
Looking forward to it.
And the other thing that goes back to a couple episodes back, or a few episodes back now, we had worshipful brother Adam Rigdon from Watomon, and he talked about, traveling in the concept that each lodge is an island, right? Because we all kind of are, right? We're all an island, but we all have boats. We can all go visit each other. And I wasn't quick enough to think about it on that episode, but my thing is, well, if you build bridges, you don't need boats anymore. So I think that's what we need to start moving towards.
Right. Yeah, I really like that analogy. Like, just more connection, all that sounds terrific.
Right. Easier to visit each other, easier to do stuff together. Let's do it, And I think if we can all succeed together, we'll just all be more successful. So.
Yeah, I agree. It is like the main issue, just time constraints between lodges, just hard to schedule and organize events right now.
There's some of that, and there's just some over the years, each lodge has kind of looked inward and focused on themselves, I think, to a certain extent, or, guys at this lodge don't get along with guys at that lodge. And I think we need to just start breaking down some of those barriers. And I think that lodges need to stop looking so much like inwards, like, oh, we have all this to do with the building, and we have this for money, and we have this, and we got to put on this event. And I think they need to start looking more like, all right, well, we have all these other bodies that meet in our building, appendant bodies and whatnot that meet in our building and stuff like that. What can they do to help us with the maintenance of the facility, or getting the word out, or putting on this event, and it goes the same. Like here, we have two different blue lodges that meet in the building. Why aren't we working together more? We started to last year with that open house, but I think we need to break down those barriers and start looking outwards and being like, well, that brother over there does this really well. Maybe we should bring him over to the lodge and he can help teach some of our guys. And this guy over here does this really well. Or, I get along with those guys at that other lodge really well. Let's get together with them. And even if it's just a social night,
right,
and not a huge event, let's just get together and hang out and get to know each other first. And then maybe that will eventually turn into, hey, you want to plan this event with me? And start building that. And then you can do bigger and better stuff, like, crowdsource basically among the lodges, having a booth at State Fair, crowdsource having a booth at Summerfest, which I know one lodge in the area is thinking about doing.
Oh, wow.
And, you can do cool stuff like that if you can pool resources and pool manpower. And I think that's what we need to do. Going back to your point, I don't want to monopolize the conversation here, but this just popped up in my head. Back when lodges were flush with people, like when they had way too many people, it was really easy to be self-sufficient as a lodge.
Right.
A lot of lodges aren't that flush with people anymore. So you see a lot of lodges that aren't putting on big events, aren't doing big stuff because they're afraid of burning out the people that they do have around. And, maybe they just don't have the manpower to do it. So why not combine resources to make it like 2 or 3 of those lodges that used to be super flush with people when Masonry was in its height and golden age. And maybe that'll start building us back to that golden age.
Yeah, it's hard to answer why lodges don't really reach out to each other and just, number one, get together anymore or work together anymore or try to build together anymore. Obviously, 2 lodges that meet in the same building, I think they don't want to blur the lines they don't want to eventually be, what's the word? They don't want to.
You don't want to lose your own personality or culture. You don't want
right.
to. Yeah. Yeah. And I can understand that.
Yeah. So I could see that, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me why lodges in the same district don't work together more.
Right.
Right.
That's something we got to work on.
I
think that's huge. And I think that's where part of the future of Wisconsin Freemasonry lies, is starting to connect those bonds between the lodges.
I think probably one of the easiest ways that lodges could help each other out more is just learning your cipher and filling a role somewhere.
Right.
Or
traveling.
Get surprised thrown into a secretary position when you didn't even know you could get put into that role.
Right. Yeah, no, I think traveling is a good place for it to start. And I think guys being prepared to travel too. Like, we talk about traveling a lot, but are you prepared to travel?
Right.
I know all of us could pass an examination if we showed up at another lodge to prove that we are. Right. But if that lodge needed you to sit junior warden, could you? Not right now.
No,
I know. That was more of a rhetorical question than anything, right? But you could fill other chairs for him. I mean, you're senior steward right now, and you could easily do junior deacon. I know you can do Tyler. So maybe study outside of your typical officer chair, so that if you are out there traveling and they need somebody to fill in, maybe you can help them out, and maybe you can offer those services, or, fill in the parts that and not even just that, just go hang out, be a good sideliner.
Right. That's important too, is just showing your support, sitting on the sidelines, just showing that you're there.
Yep, exactly. And lodges love to see people there. I know I love it when we get a ton of people at a stated meeting and a bunch of visitors.
Even just today, seeing the lodge room full for the School of Instruction.
Yep.
That's pretty neat to see.
Yeah, no, it was nice to have the number of people that came out for that one as well. I think we had a pretty good conversation here. So why don't we, in the interest of getting everybody home, because we've all been here since about 8 o'clock this morning as it is, we will wrap this thing up. I'm not doing news and events because I didn't prepare anything for it. So no, if you want to go back 2 episodes, not last week because I was traveling, the episode before that, episode 24, we went through events all the way through the middle of April, end of April, so those should still be valid if you want to hear about any events going on in Wisconsin. And I'm sure when Andrew and I get back in the studio next, we will have plenty of news stories for you and more upcoming events. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for coming in, Ethan and Ethan. Appreciate it. I know I put you guys on last minute notice on this, so
thanks for having us.
Yeah,
last minute.
Really,
told me 5
literally,
minutes before.
I was gonna say 3 minutes. You guys are doing this. I'm like, all right, sounds like fun.
I like candid conversations if people haven't figured that out yet. So
candid or surprise?
Both work. All right, have a good one, everybody. Take it easy.